The Strait of Hormuz is back at the center of the crisis, and this time, the escalation is physical. Iran has reimposed what it calls strict control over Hormuz, saying the restriction will remain until the United States stops blocking navigation to and from Iranian ports. That declaration lands less than 48 hours after Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi announced the strait was completely open for commercial vessels during the ceasefire. The reopening was conditional. The condition has now been tested. Iran is telling the world that the opening was never permanent and that the terms can be tightened at any moment Tehran decides the other side has moved first. Within hours of the declaration, reports of gunfire surfaced. According to Reuters, at least 2 vessels attempting to cross the strait reported gunfire after receiving Iranian radio warnings that they were not allowed to pass. UKMTO said a tanker 20 nautical miles northeast of Oman was fired on by 2 gunboats linked to Iran's Revolutionary Guards, though the crew was reported safe. That is a physical escalation inside a waterway that carries roughly a fifth of global oil and gas exports. The shots were not described as an attack on the vessel itself. They were described as warning fire, but the distinction between warning fire and hostile fire narrows quickly inside a contested choke point where every incident is tracked in real time by insurers, traders, and navies. Iranian officials and aligned media have pushed a toll and routing framework for Hormuz, but Reuters has not independently confirmed a formal IRGC authorization system for all commercial passage at the same level. Iran has said military vessels approaching Hormuz would be treated as a ceasefire violation, which is Tehran's position rather than a rule accepted by Washington or international bodies. Iranian political figures and aligned outlets have circulated tougher routing language on social media, but Reuters has not matched Ebrahim Azizi's alleged post at the same level as the shipping incidents. Reuters has previously reported Iranian pressure for vessels to keep closer to its waters, but the specific revised map claim here is not independently confirmed at the same level. Azizi added that all passage remains strictly conditional, requiring prior approval from Iran's Armed Forces General Staff and adherence to assigned routes. He warned that if the United States interferes with Iranian vessels, these transit permissions could be revoked at any time. That is the architecture Iran is putting on the public record. It is a regulatory framework wrapped around a military posture. Every element, the tolls, the route approval, the hazardous zone designation, the revocation clause, is designed to establish that Hormuz operates under Iranian authority, not under international convention or American enforcement. In a pointed message on social media, Azizi said the strait was returning to the status quo. That remark appeared to underscore Tehran's position that the brief opening of Hormuz was conditional and reversible. Iranian state media and officials have also pushed the idea of transit fees in Hormuz, a demand that has surfaced publicly but remains part of Iran's own framing. The toll language fits Iran's broader transit fee framing, but whether it has become an operational condition of passage remains unverified and should stay attributed. Whether any toll system is being enforced or merely announced remains an open question that only the next few days of shipping data can answer. Iranian officials have reinforced the idea that Hormuz remains tied to the ceasefire framework, but this specific Defense Ministry wording is not independently confirmed by Reuters or AP here. The broader point that Iran has warned maritime conditions could shift toward restriction if pressure on Lebanon continues is consistent with the ceasefire Lebanon linkage Araghchi built into the reopening announcement. That linkage is now appearing across multiple Iranian government channels, even if the sourcing on individual statements varies.
This will be a great and brilliant day for the world because Iran has just announced that the Strait of Hormuz is fully open and ready for business and full passage. But the naval blockade, with the greatest navy in the world, from the greatest military the world has ever seen, we built it during my first term. We built it. They said I was crazy. We weren't so crazy, were we? Will remain in full force and effect as it pertains to Iran until such time as our transaction with Iran is 100% complete and fully signed.
Trump went further. He said the process should go very quickly and that most of the points were already negotiated and agreed to. That claim has not been independently confirmed by Reuters or AP, and it sits alongside Iranian statements that describe the talks as unfinished and Washington's demands as unresolved. If Trump's claim holds, the second round of talks could move fast. If it does not, the remark becomes another entry in the gap between public messaging and actual negotiating progress. A second round of talks has been discussed, but Reuters has not confirmed an April 20th Islamabad meeting and says there is no clear sign of an immediate new round. Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf fired back directly. In a series of posts on X, Ghalibaf said Trump had made 7 claims in 1 hour, all of them false. He accused Trump of spreading misinformation and attempting to manipulate global opinion. He dismissed Trump's assertions as lies, warning that such narratives would not translate into success either on the battlefield or at the negotiating table. Ghalibaf also issued a stark warning over Hormuz, saying its access could be restricted amid continued tensions and that any movement through the waterway would be subject to Iranian control, with passage determined by designated routes and authorization from Tehran. Entirely. Washington says the strait is open. Tehran says the strait is under Iranian control. Washington says the blockade applies to Iran. Tehran says passage requires Iranian authorization. Both sides are now publicly issuing competing operational rules for the same waterway, and neither side is acknowledging the other's framework as legitimate. The clock on all of this is short. The U.S. Iran ceasefire is scheduled to end on April 22nd. The second round of Islamabad talks is expected on April 20th. That gives both sides roughly 72 hours to decide whether the framework survives or collapses. The IRGC gunfire near Hormuz, the strict military control declaration, the toll system, the revocation clause, and the Ghalibaf response to Trump all landed inside the same 48-hour window. The escalation is not gradual, it is compressed, and every move carries the weight of a deadline that is now visible on both sides. The trajectory is becoming harder to ignore. Inside a single week, Iran tightened access through Hormuz, announced a reopening during the ceasefire, was thanked by Trump for the move, reimposed strict control, and saw vessels report gunfire near the choke point, while tougher toll and routing language circulated through Iranian channels. The reopening was not a resolution. It was a pause inside a larger sequence of Iranian signaling, each step designed to suggest that the waterway moves on Tehran's terms and stops on Tehran's terms. The UKMTO confirmation of gunfire near Hormuz is the physical anchor for the rest of the sequence. Without the gunfire, the declarations would read more like pressure messaging. With it, Iran's warnings now carry a visible operational edge. The tanker and crew were reported safe. The warning was delivered, and the next vessel approaching the strait knows that the warning already happened once. That changes the calculation for every ship behind it. So this is the picture. The IRGC has declared strict military control over Hormuz. Gunfire has been reported near the strait. A toll and routing system has been announced. Ghalibaf has called Trump's claims false and threatened restriction. The Defense Ministry has tied the opening to the Lebanon's ceasefire holding. Trump has celebrated the opening while maintaining the blockade on Iranian ships and ports. The ceasefire expires April 22nd. A second round has been discussed, but no date has been confirmed by Reuters. The ceasefire expiration is approaching fast. The question is no longer whether the strait is open. The question is who controls what open means. Subscribe to WLA for daily geopolitical analysis.